Shalom, shalom. This is Rabbi Sachs coming to you from the Chai Center. Welcome to the Chai Academy. I was just outside. My glasses are dark, but they will brighten. So we have the last time we were together, a couple of days ago, we were discussing, revisiting, if you will, the original sin. And if you look at the class from 3 days ago, I believe, or maybe 4 days ago, it is a nothing that you thought that you were taught in Hebrew school. And this is the point. Can you imagine? Can you imagine you're in sixth grade or seventh grade, and you're taking math, or you're taking science, or you're taking whatever it is you're taking, and then at sixth or seventh grade, they tell you you're done. You've graduated from school. You no longer need to study, and it's done. That's kind of what happened. It'll be ludicrous, but that's kind of what happens with Hebrew schools. Hi, Eileen. You go to Hebrew school to sixth, seventh grade or something like that, and then you're taken out of Hebrew school and you're done. And the problem is with this is that you're left with an extremely elementary understanding of the Torah, what it entails. Hey, Bonnie, good morning. The Torah, what it wants, what it entails, what's its message. So the class we studied last week and today, the class we'll study today is not your typical Hebrew school experience. So it's unfortunate that it happens, and I always tell parents, don't take your kid out at bar bat mitzvah, because you'll be stunting their spiritual growth. So today's class, we're going to revisit once again the original sin, but it's different than the last class because it has a different message, a different understanding of what exactly occurred. So once again, God told God told Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, not to eat from this particular fruit of this tree. The name of the tree was the tree, Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge of good and bad. That was the instruction. And make a long story short, the snake came over, enticed Chava, Eve. She ate. She gave it to Adam to eat. She gave it to everybody else to eat. All the animals there, and they ate. And God was extremely upset. Extremely upset. So, we discussed last week that that was God upset? Was he in fact upset, or was he tickled pink? Was he marveled? Was he enamored? Was he, wow, I told them not to eat, and they did, and it's amazing. It was kind of like a reverse test, and they did it. They did it. Bravo, they did it. That was kind of and we went through it at great length. I don't want to do that today. These classes are recorded, and you could find them at thechaicenter.com/academy. Click on the Genesis course. Click on Genesis chapter 3, and you'll find the classes there. But what I want to do is to explain a little bit about what is really this tree of knowledge. What exactly is going on? So the Torah tells us that before they ate from the tree of knowledge, they were naked, v'lo yispashashu, but they were not. And this is the end of chapter 2, the last word. They were not ashamed. They were naked and not embarrassed. And then, after they ate from the forbidden fruit, they did have embarrassment. They covered themselves because they were naked. So it's the way they explain it is as follows. Before they ate from this forbidden fruit, which we discussed was not an apple. It could have been many different things, but clearly not an apple. So before they ate from this forbidden fruit, right, they saw their soul as their essence. Their soul was it. Their soul was the primary focus of their lives. All spiritual in nature, only spiritual. The body served the soul. The body, if you will, protected the soul. Just like an orange peel protects the orange, the body protects the soul. Make sure the soul doesn't get hurt, or make sure the soul doesn't get spiritually hurt, right? So so the body was complete, not only secondary. The body was the lowest of the totem pole of its concern. So therefore, because the body wasn't it, because it was the soul that was it, and that was their primary focus, they had nothing to be ashamed of. Their body was it was dispensable. It was disposable. It's the main thing is the soul, the focus on the soul. After they ate from the forbidden fruit, so now Adam and Eve's eyes were opened, and it was open to a completely different realm. Hey, Susan, completely different realm. And what happened was the body became a distraction to their soul. So no longer was their soul the essence and the primary focus. Now they had a body to contend with. And they started, and the body was interesting. Wow, I didn't, look at this, look at that. I could look beautiful, I can look sexy, I can look this and that and the other. And they became very interested in their body. They became vain about how they looked, how they act, and et cetera, et cetera. So once they made their body a co-priority with their soul, they became ashamed, because they realized they just shirked the soul. The soul was it, and now there's a dualism. Sometimes the soul, sometimes the body, which is what we live with all day, right? Sometimes we like to feed the beast, and sometimes they like to nurture our soul. So they, and just like us, we wouldn't think of going out and going naked. So too, Adam and Eve said, no, we can't go naked. I mean, we have the body is so sensuous that we can't go out naked. And Adam and Eve, they could have sunbathed, and there was no drones. Now there's drones. We can't even sunbathe on our roof. But the idea is that they were ashamed, because now they had such a connection with their body, and their body and soul became their priority. Very funny, Susan. Now, if you think about it, animals walk around without clothes all the time, right? Except these little Yorkies that their owners dress them in, the Meshuggah sweater, that little thing. But animals don't have a divine soul. Because animals don't have a divine soul, I mean, they have a divine spark, but they don't have a divine soul. Because animals don't have a divine soul, they're not embarrassed of their nakedness. They don't need clothes. It's only because we have a soul. Since we have a soul, is therefore we recognize that we kind of dumped our soul, or made it not as a priority as it should be, and therefore we're embarrassed. Now, so now they're clothed, and they hid from God. If you look at Genesis, you look at the story, is they clothed themselves, and all of a sudden they heard God and said, Ayeka, where are you? Right? Okay, why do they hide? They hid because they were ashamed. They were ashamed that they had this mitzvah, and just one mitzvah, just one, which is an argument, by the way, to those who say Judaism is so hard, we have so many mitzvahs, so this, that, and the other. Adam had one mitzvah, and he failed that. All right, so don't say it's because Judaism so hard. It's because it's where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's an attorney. So they hid because they were ashamed. They had a mitzvah to do, and they blew it. That's why they hid. They realized that they had just changed everything. There was a metamorphosis occurred. Instead of being focused on the soul only, they now introduced the body. This fits in well. This narrative fits in well. Because when the Torah calls it the tree of knowledge, the Torah says, and the knowledge, das, right? Eitz hadas, the tree of knowledge. Das, by the way, means intimacy. Where it says that Adam was intimate, das, the same word, with Chava, his wife. They were intimate. What does it mean they were intimate? What does intimacy mean? Is they fused together. Right? Man and woman, and then they fuse. So here, that's exactly what happened. Before they ate from this tree, before they ate that fruit, right? Good and evil were distinct, and good and evil were completely separate. Completely separate. You always had a choice. Adam and Eve had a choice. However, the choice was so clear. This is bad. This, Jane, good. Right? Once they ate from it, we can call it the tree of knowledge. We can also call it the tree of fusion. Good and bad became fused together. When good and bad is fused together, it's much more difficult to know what to choose. When they're clearly distinct and separate, it's easy. This is good, this is bad. When they're together, so you have black Play-Doh and white Play-Doh. This is black, this is white. When you put them together, it's very hard. Okay, this is white, this is black, and it turns gray, and it becomes unclear. Right? So there was the tree of confusion, or the tree of fusion, if you will. And that is Das. Now, once they ate it, it's very unclear. It's very unclear. Sometimes you could be doing something good, but it's your good. Once again, it becomes, and this is the original thing we spoke about, is that when good and bad are together, then it becomes subjective. When it's very clear, good, bad, then we know this is God's decision. This is good, this is bad. But when it's up to us to decide what's good, what's bad, because it's fused, it becomes very, very subjective. And it becomes subjective. It's difficult. It's difficult to have clarity. And that's why God didn't want them to eat. God said, you know what? There is such clarity before. There is such clarity. You know what's right and what's wrong. You can always choose. But clarity is there. Now, there's no clarity. There's no clarity. Right? So correct, Susan. You're correct. And we'll get to that in a moment. So there's no clarity, and it's subjective. It's for you to decide. And by the way, we see, right? Let's talk about the election for a moment without getting political. 74 million people said this is the right way to choose. 72 million people said no, this is the right way to choose. Now, if we would have had 100 people choose this, and 150 million choose that, you can say, okay, this is it's very clear what's right or wrong. We just have some Looney Toonies who are choosing, the 100 or so who are choosing, right? But but when you have 70 million and 70 million, you can tell there's confusion. Which is the moral high ground? Which one? The answer is 74 million say this, 72 million say that. Because it is subjective. And I can prove you further it's subjective. That the 74 million, right, for the most part, every time they hear their opposing candidate's voice, they're like this: I can't stand him, I can't stand him. The 72 million said, they're crooked and corrupt, I can't stand him, I can't stand him. Because of subjectivity. And so God didn't want them to have, we discussed last time God did want them to eat, but we're talking about in this interpretation, in this lesson, God didn't want them to have that confusion. It's so much easier to go through life where you know what's good and what's bad. I always give this example. If you give, a wino approaches you for money and you give him money, are you doing bad or good? Right? A child is running, your child is running to the street, and it gets close to the street, yelling at that child at the top of your lungs, is it good or is it bad? There's so many tests of what is good, what is bad. Some of them are easier than others, but there are, bottom line is, there is confusion. So it was a complete state of confusion, and this, once they ate from the tree, once we ate from the tree, it created a whole new modus operandi. It's a whole new life. It was a complete metamorphosis for Adam and Chava. Completely so. And therefore, they couldn't stay in the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is strictly for those that want clarity. They proved that they don't want clarity. And that goes well with the interpretation we said last time. And this is a similar one, is that why did they eat? Why did they eat? Is because they knew they shouldn't eat. They were in fact told they shouldn't eat. But they had everything in life. They had every single thing. They had you can have power of ice cream. They had everything in life. They were lacking one thing, and that was challenge. They didn't have challenge. So because they didn't have challenge, they felt inadequate. They felt that, there's no challenge in life. There's no challenge. We got to do something to challenge us. So they ate. Once they ate, God said, "You want challenge? You want challenge? Out." That's where you have challenge, and according to the other interpretation, God just said, "Okay, challenge. It's an incredible thing, challenge." Right? When a person has challenge, when a person is given money, just handed money, right? And every time the person, a spoiled child, right? Every time that the child, Mom, Dad need money, here's $5,000. 2 weeks later, Mom, Dad need money, here's $5,000. There's no challenge that child is going to be intolerable. But when there's challenge, when the person, the human, has to work for their money, has to get up early, has a reason to go to work, because I gotta make this, I gotta make that, I gotta make the bills, I gotta make the deadlines, I gotta make the right, and it's very healthy. So God said, "Okay, you chose challenge, and I get it. Out." So He kicked them into the Garden of Eden, and now we see something fascinating. To Adam, He said, right? You're no longer going to be able to grow wheat. right? Before the sin, it was just wheat, beautiful wheat growing for him. God says now, by the sweat of your brow, and there's going to be thorns and thistles, right? So now there is confusion, fusion. You look at the wheat. Where's the wheat? Where's the weeds? Where do the weeds begin? Where does the wheat end? Where does the wheat begin? Where do the weeds end? And you have to start sorting out through the confusion. Right? That's part of living outside of the Garden of Eden, is you have to sift through things. What's good, what's bad? What is good, what's bad? Right? Likewise with Eve. Right? The most holiest time of a person, the most holy, pure, good, right? It's holy, spiritual, is when there's the union where a child is made. Right? So it's physically good, it's spiritually good, it's pleasurable for all parties, etc. Right? So God said, you know what? If you didn't have pain in childbirth, then it would just be all good. But you've chosen mixed messages. So therefore, yes, it's going to be exquisite to make the child. Not going to be so easy to deliver the child. And it's going to be even harder to rear the child. Because, and when you rear a child, by the way, you have highlights, tremendous highs. The kid comes home, he's got chosen for the play. The kid comes home and he gets 100 again. The kid got a scholarship. The kid gets into Harvard. That's a Jewish mother's view of evolution, right? So that's incredible. But there's also lows. There's also lows. The child comes home. The principal called me. You were fighting again. Or the principal called me. He says they caught you with weed, and they go back. And if I'm dating myself, right? So that's the lows. So it wasn't just going to be make the child, pleasure, have the child, pleasure, rear the child, pleasure. No, there's confusion and fusion. You got to take a little bit of this with a little bit of that. That's their life. That's the life they chose. So it is and by the way, they became very, Adam and Eve, because now it's more subjective rather than objective. They became very in tune with their senses, what they see, right? Before they ate from the forbidden fruit, before they ate from the grapevine or whatever it was, right? Their eyes basically only saw good. Their eyes only saw good. Now, they see things both ways. They look at somebody and they see not necessarily not good things. And not spiritual. I'm talking about good and bad. I'm not talking about a car accident versus seeing a beautiful lotus plant. I'm talking about spiritually. They see a good thing spiritually, and they see something that destroys them spiritually. So they see they look at they see a great scholarly sage talking on cable TV, the Rebbe I'm thinking of, right? They say, wow, that's purity. On the same computer, they can also access porn. So there you have a good, right? And they're very in tune to their senses, but their senses can, and they have to choose which website they're going to go onto. Are they going to go onto the chaicenter.com/academy, or they're going to go onto some other terrible website, which is it could be anything. It could be any where to buy pot, or where to buy this, where to buy that, things that are just not good for you, spiritually or physically, for that matter. And of course, the ears. We can hear scandals and gossip, or we can hear Torah. Right? And it's interesting with Eve. It says that she looked at the tree and she saw it was good. the tree was very alluring. It had this magical thing because it was pulling her towards it. She knew it was wrong, but it was pulling. She tasted it. She touched it. The Torah tells us all this. And she looked at the tree. She held the fruit. She ate the fruit. All these are teaching us that her senses were involved. All her senses. So now once they ate the tree, the senses is really your 5 ways of accessing holiness or accessing unholiness. What you see, what you eat, what you hear, what you touch. Smell is very ethereal, by the way. Smell is so connected to the soul. But they have now their senses in full and full. Their senses are in full confusion. Our senses are full confusion. We have good and bad mixed in the same body, in the same computer, in the same cell phone, right? Right? We can talk on the phone, we can talk Torah, or we can talk on the phone, we can gossip, right? It's really up to us, and it's so. And what is gossip? How about if I say the truth? Is that gossip? It's confusing because that is the tree. Fusion. Confusion. So they're out. They're out in the Garden of Eden. And that's where life begins for the human being. When they were in the Garden of Eden, when they were in for the Garden of Eden, it was surreal. It wasn't reality. It could have been reality. Don't get me wrong. But God kicked them out. And on Sunday morning or Saturday night, which is the same as Sunday, they found themselves outside the Garden of Eden. And now that was the first day of the rest of their life. Sunday, the first day of the week, is they now had to pursue holiness or pursue unholiness. And sometimes you don't know. And that's why you need a mentor. That's why you need a peer and a colleague. Because you're so subjective. You need to run it by someone else. So if you're ever unsure whether something is right, something is wrong, the way you dealt with your kids, run it by someone else, because your senses are all within you, are all messed. When you speak to someone else, their divine soul and your divine soul connect, and you're able to get through the mess and the muck and the confusion. Tomorrow, please God, we're going to talk about the snake. What the snake's role was in this. Where does the snake fit in? Right? Where does this cunning, sly, quasi-human fit into this whole picture? So please God, tomorrow we'll touch upon the snake. Yes, human beings do evolve. There's no question. So if you have any questions, you can ask now. If not, you can always ask me, Rabbi at thechaicenter.com. If you know somebody that you think would like this course or like these classes, please let them know. And if you share it, that's great. God bless. Have an awesome day.